Welcome to the Innovative Accountant Podcast, presented by Integrated Advisory by Wealthco. Join your host, CPA Tim Coquell, as he explores thought-provoking ideas, information, and best practices from leading experts focused on supporting the accounting profession and the integrated advisory community. Here's your host, Tim Coquell.
Welcome back to the Innovative Accountant Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Coquell, and we have a special podcast for you today. Our focus is on technology. Specifically, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and data privacy these days. It's a timely discussion. We want to talk about the key risks that business owners are facing and best practices for risk management and governance as it pertains to technology. We're also going to spend some time exploring the opportunity that exists to elevate customer experiences with technology through digitization, automation, AI, and the modernization of operations. Joining us from Calgary, Alberta today, Stuart Smith is our guest, and we're excited to have Stuart share his knowledge and experience with us today. So welcome to our podcast, Stuart.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tim. Really a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to our discussion.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. So it's been my pleasure, Stuart, and our team at Wealthco's pleasure to work with you here over the last number of months. So we're seeing the direct impact of your great experience on our own organization. And so we felt this would be an outstanding opportunity to share you with the world a little bit and talk with what we're going to talk about with our audience here today. Before I do that, I'm just going to give our audience and our listeners a bit of your background and experience, Stuart. So hopefully you're okay with me going through that. So Stuart, decades of experience in the information technology domain. Stuart has held a number of executive leadership and technical roles during his career, working for several of Canada's largest publicly traded companies, including Shaw Communications, where you served in various roles, including Vice President for Business Transformation, Senior Director, Information Technology, and Manager in IT Infrastructure. So lots of good things to talk about there. You're co-founder today and Chief Technology Officer for the technology strategy firm Keyworks, which you founded in 2014, and more recently BluesPoint in 2021. Stuart has established himself as a strong leader of high-performance technology teams. Obviously, with the experience there, Stuart, you've had lots of teamwork involvement there. Your focus has been on operational excellence, prudent financial management, and innovative solutions. Stuart has led teams through many significant IT programs, including real-time crisis management, cloud and systems integrations, and cybersecurity, data governance, and compliance initiatives in Canada, the United States, and Australia. So a global experience there. His passion is to now work in collaboration with customers and industry partners to reinvent enterprise compliance management, ultimately reducing governance, risk, and compliance complexity, and leveraging leading-edge technology to improve cybersecurity and data privacy posture risk. That was a mouthful. Anyways, when Stuart isn't solving the world's tech problems, he's focusing a lot of time on his wonderful family, a strong advocate for special needs causes, given some family experience with Down syndrome and autism. He also loves camping, and I'm excited to hear about this cross-Canada trip that you're planning with your family, Stuart. So maybe we'll start there. I think you're going camping here this weekend, are you not?
Yeah, we actually have an RV that we've started to make some more shorter journeys from Calgary so far this summer. But we are planning next summer to do a cross-country trip. It's kind of been something I've always wanted to do. I grew up in the East. I had the great fortune of kind of going off to the East Coast and exploring on road trips as a child, and very fond memories there. So like to try to recreate that as our kids are getting a little bit up and older and get them away from their technology and out on the road with the family. So yeah, it's been fun so far. I think we've had so far this year 20 plus nights kind of out doing weekends and long weekends and such.
Fantastic. Well, we're finally getting some summer for it, so I'm sure you're enjoying that. I'll have to connect you with, I just had a contact that has the number one travel book called, I think, the Canadian Bucket List. and we're looking to do an event with him where he talks about the Canadian experience of traveling across Canada. So maybe I'll connect the two of you and he can give you some tips.
I would love that. Thank you. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Well, so Stuart, let's go back to the beginning a little bit. I always do this with our guests and just want to see what makes them tick, why they kind of got into the area that they're in. Maybe go back to the beginning for me. What excited you about technology? Where did you first start realizing that was a passion of yours?
Yeah, it really all started, Tim, for me. Back in the high school days, in the lab, I actually attended a school where they had a print shop, and I was in the class there where typesetting and setting up the different formats for print creation and print reproduction. So that was really the first computer that I got to put my hands on. And
Yeah, okay.
at that time, and this is back in the 80s, but we got to do some coding and create some kind of neat things, visualizations. And I remember, doing some early projects there. And so as time went on and I started to get into the job market as a teenager, I actually was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to have a summer job with Rogers
Perfect.
Communications in Toronto. So, and found my way into the data center fairly early on. I mean, I was running a printer and moving boxes, but
Yeah.
I got in the door there, and just the overwhelming kind of sense of this giant data center and all the different systems and machines, and it would just kind of pushed some buttons for me, and it just from there it became very natural. It was an exciting journey for sure.
Yeah, that's very cool. It sounds like it was more of a practical experience journey as opposed to a textbook journey. And even your title today, we talk about Chief Technology Officer. That seems like a fairly, every company's talking about needing a CTO today. But how has that sort of educational path changed over the years since when you started? A lot of that back then was just hands-on, getting in. What does that look like today?
Yeah, I mean, back when I started my journey, there wasn't a lot of formal kind of technology training or schooling, and universities certainly weren't doing much in that space. So, fortunately for me, I did have the access to the role at Rogers that got me going. But, over the years now, and it really started to escalate in the 90s, where certifications, the big technology vendors, the Microsofts of the world, they would put courses and actually have designations, very similar to the accounting field, where you could go out and become an MSc specialist in Microsoft technology, and they designations followed, and a lot of the other technology manufacturers followed as well. So that really helped advance. And now certainly here in Calgary, Alberta, actually in Alberta, with the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, there's a lot of focus there. The programs are in place now, so younger folks can make that transition fairly simply. There's classes now on teaching code development. You can become a network specialist, cybersecurity. I mean, basically, the sector has really emerged, and fortunately for me, timing was everything. I was just in the right place at the right time as the tech space really kind of exploded, and all companies adopted technology in many different forms. But certainly there was an explosion where I was fortunate to be right there at the right time. So
that's perfect.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think you've got to be good to be lucky, though. So I think you obviously have had a lot of success in your career in that space. You've worked with some of the Canada's largest public companies, including Shaw. And let's talk about Shaw a little bit. You were there for, over 10 years, something like that. What was it like working with some of these companies that were on the leading edge of communication and technology in Canada?
Yeah. My time at Shaw was very special. I was able to, I was in a number of different roles over the 10 years and got to participate in a lot of big, exciting technology rollouts, projects, acquisitions of other companies, mergers where, different technologies had to come together. And so, those were very special times. We had an amazing team, great culture. kind of checked all the boxes, kind of the perfect situation. And I mean, I look at how Shaw was evolving and their growth and their revenue kind of, again, I was there in the time where they were taking off and being very competitive in Western Canada. We added 1 million home phone subscribers on a IP telephony product while we were there. And it was just a really, really special time. We also saw a lot of investment in technology. And so in my role as Vice President Business Transformation, that was all about taking the legacy systems, that the company had over the 30, 40 years and reinventing those and transforming processes and leveraging newer technologies to advance the customer experience. And that's really where I learned, some pretty interesting areas for myself to focus in and drive development as well. I mean, there's a real kind of history in banking, insurance, telecom, where the systems that were the mainframes of the 80s and early 90s changed into more decentralized systems and servers. Obviously, the web became more predominant in how we do our business. Things were happening in a mobile manner. And so, to kind of be front and center and involved, roll up the sleeves and participate, real exciting, and a great team of people around us at the Shaw head office actually here in Calgary. And we were also present for the acquisition of CanWest Global, which was a large television, advertising, radio stations. It's now part of Chorus Entertainment, but the integration of different kind of sectors coming together was also some pretty special experience. So I always look back fondly on my time at Shaw, and certainly very fortunate, but also you're right, luck wasn't all there. It was, you lean into your role and you surround yourself with great people and good things come out of that. So that's kind of how I view that time there.
Yeah, integrating other companies and taking what they had for systems along with Shaw, I'm sure you learned a ton doing that. And like you say, the springboard maybe out of that, I was going to ask you the question, what did you value most about your experience working with them? But it sounds as though it was really just that springboard for you to learn how to transform businesses through technology. And is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a difficult thing to do. I mean, taking on that transformation within an organization, I really do kind of liken it to, brain surgery or heart surgery. You have to keep your company running. You have to keep operations going. Revenues can't be impacted. Customer experience certainly can't be impacted. So, you have to kind of take this iterative approach, and small bites planning and strategy is a huge part of that. And, kind of growing up as an operational guy earlier on, the more strategic planning side of things was invaluable to that. I mean, you really have to start that journey with a strong plan, and that's probably what I learned the most, and I certainly appreciate it and take forward now into kind of my current areas of focus with our businesses today.
Yeah, I think, you will talk about that next, kind of that transition from the big public kind of space. What was, we talked about the good things. What was some of the challenges that you saw in the public space that maybe were part of the catalyst of why you wanted to step out and do your own thing?
Yeah, I had actually, spent, a couple of decades with large publicly traded companies, and my father was actually an entrepreneur by spirit back when I was a younger boy, and watched my dad and growing different companies and the diversification, and so I was always intrigued by that, but there's something to be said about the excitement and the stability of a corporate gig as well. So
for sure, yeah.
When the time kind of the journey path opened up for me, the doors opened up. A couple of like-minded people that I respected and trusted, came calling, and we sat down and we had a chat about, okay, well, what, how could we shape this, leveraging our experiences and create our own company and, kind of do it your own way and take our learnings and put them and apply them with clients and help our clients become successful. So it was really an easy decision and a quick pivot for me to go and do that. Certainly a different world for sure. I mean, I think, I recall sitting in sessions with my business partners and with a whiteboard and, okay, what do we want to be when we grow up? And, I'd been in telecom and in large enterprise for my whole career. And funny enough, that didn't kind of make its way onto the whiteboard. So you kind of, it was probably 6 or 8 months later where we said, hey, wait a minute, maybe we should go and talk to telecommunications companies. I mean, that's where we all came from. And so that was really where, the first, 6 months of planning and discussions and, hey, what do we want to do? How do we want to support the market? And then, we kind of had that breakthrough and, our first gigs started to come fast and furious after that. So it was definitely an interesting transition for sure.
Yeah. No, that's, I love the entrepreneurial in the blood stories. So, I come from that as well. And, growing up around that entrepreneurial spirit, as you said, and mindset, it's hard not to get excited about it. So very cool that you stepped out, took the risk. I'm sure, by the looks of things, it's paid off wonderfully for you. Obviously a scary step at times, like you say, you're going from a pretty solid situation to that, but the opportunity to be creative and really sort of create your own path, I think is super cool. So, let's talk about Keyworks. So, the purpose of it. What are you guys really focused on today? What kind of services are you providing to the world? And maybe we can even chat a little bit about the team you've built around you.
Yeah. So great. So out of that first kind of 6 months to a year, even our name Keyworks. So it comes from key people working together. So.
Okay.
It was a fine group of folks that kind of we all got together and started the company. And really what we wanted to do was take our learnings from enterprise business, our experiences, and help small, medium companies as a consulting group, help them in many different ways. And so Keyworks was founded in 2014, and I think we're just starting off I think we're heading into our 9th year coming up here. Our fiscal is in September, so it's been definitely a journey. We've offered many different services, and some are, you fail fast or you succeed quick, and you keep kind of optimizing and changing. But we've really landed on 4 areas that we're focused on right now, and the main one, again, we come from a telecom world, so we have some deep expertise and knowledge and a very large personal network in the telecommunications and engineering space. So we definitely have a stream that is one of our foundational streams. My career in IT has kind of led me in different areas, and it's such a kind of a wide and diverse field now. We've kind of narrowed that down to cybersecurity. So we have a number of technical teams, engineers that are out helping clients improve their cybersecurity posture, whether that's through kind of technical hands-on or the softer side of things, as I call it, which is more around risk and compliance and governance, which I think we'll talk a little bit more about today in the podcast. We also have a couple of other streams where, we offer ourselves out. We're all fairly senior folks with deep experience and knowledge. So kind of like a virtual executive, virtual CIO, CTO. And then we also have a development wing that has now morphed into what is called BluesPoint. I think you're going to ask me probably about. Yeah. So in 2021, we recognized the need for organizations from a cybersecurity compliance perspective to basically achieve some mandated compliance. Some of them are more self-imposed, but there's also others that are regulated or mandated depending on what sector or industry you're in. So we're building through BluesPoint a software platform as a service, a SaaS-based platform that automates that compliance process. Having spent time in large boardrooms and with meetings of 30 and 40 people and, kind of moving from meeting to meeting and giant Excel spreadsheets, it's definitely a large undertaking to achieve compliance. So, and we'll talk a bit more about those compliance frameworks, but it's very heavy lifting for an organization. So we're looking to optimize that through automation. And so we're in the development phase of that project right now. It's quite exciting.
Very cool.
The BluesPoint name comes from actually we had a 4-year consulting engagement down in Australia, down in Sydney actually, which was really neat. We were working for a large telecommunications internet provider in Australia. And BluesPoint is actually a neat little neighborhood in North Sydney where you can see the Opera House and the bridge. BluesPoint Road, it's a neat little spot with some neat cafes and wine bars. And often after a hard day's work, my business partners and I would go or our colleagues would get together and regroup and catch up on the day and talk about things. And so anyway, that's where the name BluesPoint came from. And so we incorporated that company in 2021. It's quite exciting.
Yeah, very exciting. Love the name. And is that platform, is it public companies, mid-sized companies, small companies that you're driving that for?
We've had some deep experience with actually working with airports. We started off with BluesPoint, kind of taking our learnings from airports. But, I look at all businesses kind of have a back office, a subset of systems. We all kind of use email. We all use networking and Wi-Fi. And so regardless of what sector you're in, those systems probably make up about 50 to 70% of your back office. And then your kind of more industry sector specific applications and tool sets make up the rest. So we started the platform off by focusing on our learnings from consulting engagements in cybersecurity within airports and also within telecom. And now we're kind of moving that down and focusing on other sectors and expanding. We're working with a couple of educational organizations right now as well, and quickly now moving towards fintech and finance and insurance as well. We're seeing a lot of traction actually in the insurance space where insurance underwriters are now looking for more information from companies, regardless of what sector you're in, on your cybersecurity posture. So previously, you may have 1 or 2 questions in your insurance renewal form about your cybersecurity. Well, now we're seeing, more in-depth technical questions and answers, and so there's a real shift there. And so we've evolved our product and platform to support that as well.
Very cool. Nice to see that, obviously that creative mindset, and being private, you can pivot and you can look for those opportunities as they come up. Let's go back to something you said. You mentioned the virtual CTO concept. I think that the last guest I had on actually was doing the virtual CFO and had built an amazing team with regards to that. Do you see that as an area that you're going to continue to expand in, where you can, because a lot of companies, they're not of the size where they can go and hire somebody with your skill set to come in on a full-time basis to really help them with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
There appears to be a big gap there. So
absolutely, we see that, and and again, having experience with large IT teams. I mean, I've been part of IT teams with 1,000 people. IT doesn't, in a lot of large organizations, always have the best reputation. I mean, there's so many challenges to do a really good job in IT. So, things have shifted. And so a lot of medium-sized organizations now, do you really want to go out and hire 15, 20 IT people to run all your tech? Or, things have shifted to the cloud. And so we see that where, there's an opportunity to be a virtual CTO, CIO, come in and help companies achieve a technology roadmap and, understand with clarity, okay, what does it look like this quarter, next fiscal year? What are we budgeting for? What new technologies are we going to add? And so just to help kind of put a real tight strategy together and provide some guidance and leverage our relationships within the technology sector as well with all the big vendors and, bring that to the table. I think, not every company, just like we all don't need to have a data center now because we're in the cloud for, the most part. the majority of companies are shifting that way or have already. We also don't necessarily need to have a huge, substantial IT team. So there's different ways to achieve that. And
Go about
yeah,
it.
so yeah, virtual CTO, CIO, absolutely, we see that as a shift. And we're working with a number of customers, clients now in that manner. So it seems to be
yeah, well, I think even in our, as I opened with, doing some work with you with the Guelphco group, and really in that regard, right? We don't have a CTO today. We've talked about that a lot. But being able to bring somebody in with decades of experience and really accelerate that process and then leverage other resources through your network, I think is very powerful. Let's talk a little bit about your team. So you do a lot of different things. You've got some founders. What have you grown your team to today? And I'm assuming it's not just employees and your internal people that you leverage when you're supporting clients. You likely have a lot of other resources or resource partners. Just share a little bit of that story with us.
Yeah, well, we really try to have a team that is scalable, and we like to say, and just like with my experience here with the Wealthco team, Tim, we want to be as Keyworks as a brand, we want to be known as we can come in and fit in quickly with an organization with their culture and stretch our own bench out as much as possible and to adopt to the requirements that are being asked of us to meet the client objectives. So we really do have this virtual model in terms of our team size. We've been as many as 40 people and, we've been down to 20, but, we do leverage consultants. We have a lot of relationships in the tech sector and space. And so we'll add and complement as needed. But we also do have a very core group that is our full-time team. Some of them are full-time assignments at certain clients where, we're looking after very specific things. But and when the pandemic came upon us, and just like any other business, having, us all kind of scattered around and not going into the office every day, we had to recreate and reinvent ourselves as well. So in the world of tech, and we've mentioned cloud, and we'll touch on it a bit as well, but, you kind of shift and, there's this whole compute power where you only use what you need. And sometimes, like maybe on a Sunday morning, you're not using very much. So the requirements go down. But on a peak time on Wednesday at, 2 p.m., you're probably using a lot more compute power. So I kind of look at our team and our resources in a similar way. And so we've tried to structure, the days of the kind of 9 to 5 business are behind us. We've evolved, and certainly the pandemic has really pushed that up and on the forefront for all companies. But we've really reinvented ourselves to support that model. And so we kind of have this fluctuating team that can be scaled. We've got some real key strategic partners and that can help us to accomplish that as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So just to wrap up a bit of this section here, you're spending a lot of time running a business, managing a team, doing a lot of different services. What, from Stuart's perspective, what type of client does Stuart like to work with? What are you most passionate about in the type of work that you do for clients today?
Yeah, no, great question, Tim. I think we have a lot of conversations with a lot of companies, and so there's a couple of criteria there. First and foremost, it's people say they want change within their environment, but you have to really have a set of stakeholders that are very committed and really understand that. The old adage, be careful what you wish for, because transformation is a big thing. I mean, you're basically, turning your company's processes, the way things are done, the way that things have been done for maybe 10 years doesn't mean that's going to be the way of the future. So, you really have to have that commitment from the stakeholders. Working with the Wealthco team has been really a breath of fresh air in that sense. Everyone's, excited and looking and to create and drive change and be innovative. And so that's really the ideal kind of client, that mid-sized customer that has some big objectives, and they leverage technology, but they also understand that technology is just a means to accomplish your objectives, right? And so my passion, to kind of the second part of your question, is it's not about the technology, and a lot of IT teams in different places that I've seen, it becomes kind of about the technology, and you get into sometimes almost religious discussions about, oh, is it Microsoft or is it Amazon? And well, at the end of the day, it's about the customer, and it's about supporting business objectives, growth, gaining efficiencies, optimizing, helping clients and customers achieve their goals and have that seamless experience and that relationship. So technology is a tool to help achieve that. And so I'm really passionate about not being that old school IT group that has all these people and this big budget and these long projects that no one really knows what's going on and when's it going to end. I really want to cut through that and show in a passionate way that things can be done as a collaborative in a collaborative manner with the business stakeholders and the people that are in front of their own customers and achieving success together. And that's really what I'm passionate about.
Yeah. Well, that passion definitely shines through and in everything you do.
We are going to get back to the interview in just a moment. If you are listening to this episode of the podcast and wondering what you can do today to transform your CPA practice, I have a free resource I want to share with you. It's called the Integrated Advisory Video Series. This 8-part video series shares our learnings over the past 20 years of how successful accounting firms are increasing revenue by offering a more holistic service offering to their clients. You will walk away with a firm understanding of the immediate changes that are happening in the accounting industry and the impact that they will have on your firm in the future. How successful independent accounting firms are broadening their service offerings and offering a better client experience without increasing their billable hours. And how you can become your client's most valued advisor by being at the core of their wealth management team. To get access to this free 8-part video series, visit integratedadvisory.ca. That's integratedadvisory.ca to learn how you can grow your firm without burning out or increasing your billable hours. Visit integratedadvisory.ca and get free access to the video series today. Now back to our guest.
It's a great transition to sort of get into our focus today on why I think listeners are listening today, which is, there's a lot of risks that they're facing in their business as it relates to cybersecurity, data. You don't have to, flip into too many news channels to kind of hear about this breach or that hack or, Russia, Ukraine, and cyber threats and all of the things that are going on. And especially as we look at our accounting community, I mean, they're at the center of data in a lot of respects. They've got critical information and accounting information and tax details and private data. A lot of companies are likely struggling with how do they deal with these risks. So that's an area that I want to make sure that we talk about a little bit here today, and get some learnings from you, some best practices. But I also don't want to leave it with just the fear of these risks here. I want to talk about the opportunity that I think technology brings, and how it's really changing and improving the end customer experience. And some of your public background, you saw how those tools can be leveraged to really deliver a great customer experience. And then through what you're doing with Keyworks, you've got lots of experience consulting to companies that are being innovative and creative. So I'd like to have a risk-based conversation, and then we'll talk a little bit about the opportunities that come. So let's just start there. So risk management, governance, what are the biggest risks that businesses are facing today? Let's just jump in what you're saying.
Yeah, no, Tim, I think you're spot on in framing this conversation. I don't think it's any newspaper, Google search, any news site that we go on, headlines are all about who's been breached, what's happened, when we have disruption with our technology, the first thing people think of off the top of their head is oh, it must be a cyber attack, and those threats, those risks are continuing to be immense, and obviously globally, there's a lot going on in our world, and there's some certain areas that there is a lot of reason for concern. I mean, there's a lot of bad threat actors out there that are looking to, in some form or some way commit a cyber crime. And, it could be a financial motivated crime. It could be, disruption. And, it doesn't, we look back to the U.S. Just not too long ago when the big pipeline company was breached, and it basically took the Eastern Seaboard down to a standstill. I mean, gas prices went up, and the impact was just so substantial. So that's on a grander scale, but on a smaller scale, organizations, particularly in the financial sector, the data that we're dealing with is so sensitive, and it's financial, it's personal, so it's all about privacy, it's all about confidentiality, and also, to add on to that, as a business, it's reputational. You have to be able to maintain, that you're a trusted partner, and particularly when we're dealing with personal finance and wealth. I want to know that who I'm working with is doing their due diligence on their side of things, and I have a level of privacy and confidentiality, and we're on such a trajectory right now with technology and things at such a pace in terms of how quickly we're adopting new things, and again, the pandemic drove a lot of that as we all kind of went home and worked from home, and things like e-signature and where those practices weren't accepted previously, now it's a common thing. So yeah, I would say cybersecurity, privacy, data. I mean, I think data is a common theme of our chat today. Not only knowing that my personal data is in a place where it's going to be safe and secure, that I'm dealing with a trusted source that has taken their own due diligence and ensured that my data will be safe, and also that they're looking in a forward-thinking manner to ensure that that's going to go forward. Because what a lot of people don't realize is, and in my experience, we've worked with clients where we've done a cybersecurity validation or an assessment or a penetration test for them on their environment. And I mean, essentially 5 minutes after the cybersecurity people leave, you're basically back to, in the place where those hackers can be looking, or those bad threat actors can be looking at your environment again. And there's cases where a website can go up and it's 10,000 hits on it of people trying to find exploitation. And so it's just about raising that awareness and understanding kind of who we're dealing with, what we're dealing with, the systems that we're using. Are they following through with the right certifications and governance side of things as well? So it's I would say raising awareness, personal awareness. We're all accountable. Directors of companies are liable and accountable for privacy now, and so and in a lot of cases, if a box of papers ended up in a parking lot somewhere with customer information, I mean, imagine how bad that could be. So that's also tenfold in the in the world of today, where we are all online. We're all mobile. And so it's just about bringing kind of all of those pieces together and having a clear understanding of what you're protecting, how you're protecting it, and providing that assurance to our clients.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic response. And as it's evolved, as it's accelerated this technology, so has the regulatory environment changed, right? Because, you sit back and you hear all of these bad things that happen. Well, immediately that there's going to be more government involvement, more regulation in terms of what you can do with that data, how you have to protect it. So just give a bit of an update for the listeners on where that's at. What are some of the key things that, that small to mid-sized business needs to be aware of as it relates to the risks and how they're now being regulated on that?
Yeah. So what I would say is, and I go back to my that massive pipeline situation there in the United States. I mean, right after that, the president of the U.S. Asked all of the tech leaders in large American firms to come to the White House and have a meeting, and they talked about governance and compliance and how new measures need to be adopted to protect infrastructure, to protect finances, protect our economy, and so these frameworks and compliance focus are really necessitated, and they're driven by many different factors. They can be driven by government, they can be driven by industry. In the case of the credit card industry, closer to the financial services industry. So Visa, MasterCard, American Express, they've adopted something called PCI for the payment card industry. And it's a real mature subset of operating controls and governance that is implemented within a technology environment, and really just helps assure that things are done with best practices, and that we're following through on kind of what we're saying. We're ensuring security, we're ensuring availability, data privacy, confidentiality, as well as privacy. So there's a bunch of these different compliance frameworks. They're driven in multiple different ways. I think the one I would say, which is most relevant to our conversation today, would be SOC 2, which is Service Organization Control, and it really is a bunch of operating controls. It actually was brought forth, my understanding is, by ACPA, and it's about putting in a number of operating controls within your technology environment that ensure that you're achieving best practices and doing the right things within your environment. So any tools, any platforms, any new softwares that we're buying, the first thing I would say we should do is look for SOC 2 certification. And certainly this is, there's more to the story, but SOC 2 is a real good place to start. If I was overseeing my own business, which I am, we only do tools that have SOC 2, and whenever I'm looking at new technology, I'm always asking those providers, is that, are you SOC 2 compliant? So,
are you compliant? Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I'm assuming that part of what your firm does with businesses is that you're going to help them get an understanding of all these different pieces and how it applies to their specific business. That, what do they need to be in compliance with? What kind of processes and governance structure do they need in place to ensure that they're adhering to that regulatory?
No, absolutely, Tim. And you're right on. Again, that's a great question, comment. There's a risk too to our businesses that we're maybe taking on too much governance. I mean, in some cases, a business may have to achieve or meet several compliance frameworks, right? I mean, if you're accepting a credit card in your business, you have to be PCI certified. If as I just said, you want to have a different subset of platforms, maybe SaaS-based technologies in your business, they have to be SOC 2 certified. Publicly traded companies have certain frameworks they have to meet as well. So there's a real risk. Our team did some work with a large enterprise, and they potentially could have had over 2,000 different operating controls that, as an organization, had to be implemented, monitored, managed on a regular basis, quarterly reporting. And so you just think about the level of effort to achieve that. It's a lot of work there. It's heavy lifting. And so you kind of have to, and where our team focuses about finding that sweet spot where, okay, this is our business. Here's what we know we have to do, or we're mandated, or we're required to do, and then here's what we want to kind of self-impose on ourselves. We want to ensure that this cybersecurity, and so there's other frameworks that are adopted from that case, but just finding that place where it's not too little, but it's not too much, because you can basically,
Right.
slow everything down and stop kind of the efficiencies of your operation if everyone's so focused on that. So
Right.
it's kind of like
Right.
finding that
You still got to run a
what's the
business.
tipping point
Yeah.
there, and that's really where we focus and what we put a lot of time and energy into with our
Yeah,
clients.
no, that's perfect. Yeah, the accounting firms, they deal with so many different business owners, and so that I can imagine if they're trying to support their firms and help them grow and protect their businesses, they've got to have at least consultants like you in their network to help with that. But even in their own business, their chances are their billings are getting collected with Visa. They're using cloud-based software platforms, whether it be tax prep to do tax returns or, some of the accounting-based systems that they use. They got CRM systems. They got all these things that they're building in that are gathering and collecting that data. So, and I, just in talking to these firms, trying to get a handle on all of the things that they need to be, in a lot of cases you trust the providers that you're working with, that's just, obviously it's set up properly, but they probably don't know what they don't know. And so knowing that there's resources like your firm out there that can come in and kind of give them a hand and get them up to speed is fantastic. You and I've talked in the past about, the accounting profession and how it's impacted technology. Chat a little bit about that from your perspective, because the audit world, the work they do, systems and controls as an accounting profession has been part of what they've done forever. How have you seen that play an impact in the technology space?
Certainly, it's funny when I look back on my career and, we were, a bunch of IT people in the back room doing our thing. And then all of a sudden, a group of blue suits from the Big Four show up and, start asking us questions about, okay, well, who has access to this and what file, and show me this log, and start getting into the more technical side of things. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, where's this coming from? And so that really started to happen and gain a lot of traction back in the early 90s and has evolved since then. And so, accounting firms have really driven all of the different, what I would call, cybersecurity frameworks, best practices, the GRC, governance, risk, and compliance side of things. So it's really about the discipline that CPAs have adopted and driven within their businesses, applying that into the technology sector. And so it's a real interesting conversation, actually, because, at first we were kind of a bunch of technical people taken aback by, okay, why are the accountants here asking us all these questions? But at the time, it was really, there had been some organizations, some large ones that you may recall, back, it's a long way back, but there was an Adelphia Cable. I come from telecom. Adelphia Cable was I believe, a New York or New Jersey based cable company, and the owners were committing fraud, and they were accessing things and transferring funds and doing some funky things there, and there was federal charges laid, and it was a big front page news story. But the finance sector self-corrected and put in a bunch of measures to prevent that from happening. And so over the course of my career, I've watched that focus move into technology, as many companies are using more and more technology. We're all technology enabled. And so it just makes sense. And so, the financial services industry has driven GRC, governance, risk, and compliance in the technology space. And it took a little while for us tech people to kind of get our heads around that. But now that we recognize the positive outcomes that come with that.
Value of it, yeah.
It's about improving your cybersecurity posture. It's about implementing best practices within your operation. It's about also leveraging new technologies to automate and drive efficiencies. And I think that's a real interesting conversation that I often love to have about how finance has impacted technology.
Yeah, it's, you look at some of the CPA bodies around the world and how that profession is being disrupted with technology because a lot of their traditional services are being replaced by technology. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But how they're adapting to that, how they're changing as a profession to be able to really become more focused on the data, not from the, is the company a going concern because they got enough money in the bank account? It's more around, okay, what are some of these other risks? What are these areas that we need to do to sort of protect and protect data? So yeah, interesting to hear you talk about the 90s, how that's evolving, and kind of even seeing where it's going in the profession today. Let's talk about organizations. You go into accounting firms, you go into businesses all the time. What mindsets need to change in your view to adapt to this and to truly embrace risk, that the risks that are out there and the governance models that are required?
I mean, I think there's a number of points there, Tim. I talk about how the financial service industry has driven GRC, governance, risk, and compliance in technology. That's great. We've moved really far down that path. But what I'm seeing, what we've seen, and it's not just in financial services, but a lot of other sectors, a lot of organizations are still running kind of the manual way. I mean, this was the way we used to do it, the way we're always going to do it. Again, the pandemic has shifted some behaviors culturally, just out of necessity. So I would say first and foremost, don't be afraid of a culture of change. I think that's something that any organization that is looking at growth now and also customer experience and also protecting themselves from the risks that are out there that we've talked about. You have to be able to look at all the options and kind of be fairly well versed and working with partners like ourselves at Keyworks or others, but kind of mapping out what are your future objectives as a company, as an organization. What are you looking at as a priority within your business? I like to do things kind of in a more of a short term 90-day window cycle, but also having a longer term strategic view as well, and linking those two together. But not afraid to leverage some of the new advancements in technology like AI. There's different systems and sub platforms out there that can really drive a lot of value for us. I mean, look at how collaboration tools have helped us as we all moved to work from home, and you can be on a meeting and chatting at the same time with a coworker, or so I kind of look at how collaboration has supported us through the pandemic, but looking at how the ability to optimize and automate and again making it all about that customer experience and putting yourself in that client's shoes, and what was maybe okay just 3 years ago, maybe something that might have taken 3 days to whatever, end transaction or sign off on a paper change on data that needed to happen. What used to maybe take days or even a week to do, that's people's perception now. It's we're in this world now where everything's mobile and everything's in real time, and so having that open mind to shift and lining up your business to kind of meet those expectations. I mean, at my house, when we order pizza, I can tell when it went in the oven at Domino's, right? So, it's that level of transparency. I mean, it's a silly little thing, but they are showing you every step of the way. When we call our Uber driver, we know, some of us watch, how far away is that driver and how close and what time are we getting picked up. So, thinking about some of those large scale changes in our world and how we're leveraging technology and how can we apply that to our own business, and what can we do in our client customers' eyes to help transform our businesses. And so that's really what I would say is a real area of focus that I think that organizations need to embrace, particularly in the finance industry. I mean, you guys are, we have the big banks, they have deep pockets, and, they're spending a lot of money on their tech, and we all have our online, here and there. And so it's about, now kind of how do we line up and what can we do to kind of break the chain or to implement areas of customer experience that are really going to be meaningful and that our clients are appreciative and they're going to look to maybe add more to us and help us grow, meet our own objectives at all. For me, it all kind of fits together. if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it totally does. And it's such a perfect transition to our second part of this topic. And you've sort of been touching on that as this customer experience and really the opportunities. But it does take the mindset, as you alluded to. If you're afraid of change, if you're not afraid to look at the opportunities, or if you are afraid to look at the opportunities, well, some of these things are going to become minimum expectations. Like what the bank's doing with technology and how they're investing money and growing. Like if you don't have the ability to deliver similar types of experiences, you're going to have some challenges. So, let's talk about that. What are some of the opportunities that you see, and maybe we can speak to it around professional services or financial services, just to kind of keep it focused on our audience. I mean, from digitization to automation to just modernizing operations to artificial intelligence, there's so many things out there. It starts to become a bit noisy. How do you help clients kind of focus in on what they should be taking advantage of?
For sure. Absolutely. There's a lot of buzzwords. It's easy to kind of get caught up in that, and then it gets overwhelming. I mean, you go, okay, well, geez, where do we start? How do we do this? For me, my view is it all comes down to driving better business outcomes. I mean, and better business outcomes in support of our clients. We touched on that a little bit, but also in support of our own businesses and making things more efficient, optimizing, automating. By embracing and leveraging new technologies, things like AI, artificial intelligence. There's so many different cloud-based platforms and tools sector-wide. In the old days, companies would go and build their own stuff. I'm a big proponent of why recreate the wheel. There's a lot of great companies out there that have, built some really cool leading edge. And these are all opportunities. These technologies are opportunities for us to look within our business. And instead of spending time on the build or putting a team together to make that build, it's about do your own research, work with partners like ourselves, come up with your own plan, and leverage that technology. I mean, we talk about everywhere we go, it's data, leveraging data. And we're sitting on, all of us in our businesses are sitting on a ton of data. How can we leverage data, in maybe one product offering that might have an impact on another product offering? And, we have so many insights, those gleaning little nuggets within our business that, I think, Tim, we were in a discussion the other day and you mentioned kind of the gold mining analogy. Data is the gold. And so, be open to exploring how we can leverage technology to help us mine that data and put different perspectives on things that allow us to have glimpses into our business that go, I like to say, shine the light in the dark corners and say, okay, hey, this piece of data means maybe that, this certain criteria that we found can have an impact on upselling another product or bringing value to our client in a way that they hadn't seen before or thought of. And, so I think it's that kind of openness. But it all starts with that plan and strategy of how to get from A to B. You have to really understand where you're at today, what's in place, what works okay, what works not so good, what are our customers happy with, and what do our customers want to see? And, the whole demographic conversation. I mean, our clients are not our parents' clients, right? They're younger now, they're mobile, they want to see things in real time. And so kind of lining all that up, making a plan, and then, over your own kind of desire in terms of what you can sustain as an organization. It doesn't have to be an overnight change. In fact, I kind of strongly recommend it's not. It's, it's planned, it's thought out, and it's clear. And, pick some technology partners that are leveraging some of these compliance frameworks that we've talked about that, there's not a risk there. And just start taking that path forward. And I love to, in the tech space, we use iterations. We like to do things in small, meaningful it's like chewing off a small bite and enjoying that, and then move on to the next bite, and not take on too much too fast, but make a meaningful way forward, and enjoy the journey, enjoy that meal while you're taking those small bites.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I think, there's the opportunities, as you've talked about here, on delivering services differently. And the accountants have so much opportunity in that regard. They're just on the cusp of some amazing things, in my view, with that data. What they can continue to offer to clients by just knowing more about their clients with that, and is unlimited, in my view, of what they can accomplish there. So that's one area. But the other area is just simply, how do you run a more efficient business? Like, part of that customer client experience is just, is it timely? Is it, like, how long do things take? Is it like, what's that efficient process like? So talk a little bit about some of the work you do there, and how, because clients can look at the revenue side of that, or they can look at the efficiency side on some of these things. And when you're trying to do it all, it's back to your small bites. It's like, well, where do you start in all this? Do you start with efficiencies? Do you start with digitization? I mean, if you don't have the data digitized, it's really hard to turn it into something, right? So is that sort of the natural place that you start with people, is helping them start to make the data actually useful?
I mean, for me, it starts with kind of looking at our day-to-day operational activities, and, what's manual? What are we doing now? What are the opportunities to take time out of that kind of, the start and end time of a process, or a, whatever, different kind of, maybe it's one transaction, maybe it's a form that gets generated and it's manual, looking at, okay, how do we address that? How do we kind of move those to the digital world? So digitization, it kind of starts with looking at all your processes, and again, what's working, what's not, identify the ones that are, there's real areas to move the needle on, and make sure that, that can be achieved. Then the other side of it from a technology perspective is, sometimes we overcomplicate things. In fact, I mean, more often than not, some organizations are using more systems than they need. And so, I often like to talk about the tech stack. And so it's what is required for us to optimize those processes that we talked about, those customer outcomes or those business outcomes, and how many touch points with different systems are required. And, maybe where you have 2 or 3 different platforms you're using, maybe there's one out there that does that, all of those. And just, again, it's about educating yourself and looking in, or working again with a partner that can help you find ways, because you may go and say, I want to digitize this transaction, this process, this workflow, but then you put it into your systems, and because you have 6 systems, it breaks down along the way, and that one system, it sits there for 3 days or a week, so it's about kind of tying both sides of that together, and looking at what are the potentials. And in the fintech space, I mean, there's so many progressive technologies. My time here, working with the WealthCo team, I've spent a bit more time than I would have previously on looking at fintech, and there's a lot of great companies that are out there, and they're changing the way things are being done. And so I really encourage, look at that. For the smaller firms, sometimes there's, just through some of the basic collaboration tools that we're using today, you can optimize process just by, maybe before you weren't so comfortable with, it had to be a sign off, or, you're now using we're mostly using e-signatures, but ensuring that same kind of disruption is happening with your processes. And, it's all about getting back to the customer as quickly as we can. I mean, quite honestly, I mean, you look at email, for example, for us, Tim, in our kind of career grouping and age grouping, email was a way, but now today younger people are, it's all about instant messaging, and so what are we, what we're not comfortable with is really the places we have to go look at, and it doesn't mean we have to jump into the pool with both feet, but at least be well versed in where our sector's going, in fintech, what's out there, who's doing what, and just see how we can move that needle from those manual processes, more automated. And then once you've got that kind of momentum of digitization within your business, now we're talking about, leveraging that data, because if you're only seeing a small piece of the data, maybe one client, you may have a client that has information on multiple systems, multiple platforms. Well, how are we getting a centralized source of truth on that client, and what systems are we going to have in place to manage that, to protect that, and enable us to provide those services where we can now glean that gold data and say, hey, Mr. Client, hey, you're really, we're strong here in the wealth portfolio, but hey, we're also offering this. We're doing insurance, or we're offering this, and we notice that your beneficiary here is your daughter, but we don't have insurance with her, so maybe we can open up that conversation. And so we're starting to see, and obviously there's regulatory challenges and things that have to be considered, but all that said, there's a real opportunity for financial services to increase customer experience, being more proactive and in real time, and advancing how we're carrying ourselves as a business on a regular basis.
Right. Yeah. No, that's perfect. And so getting the data digitized, then starting to be able to understand it and what we do with it. Where does artificial intelligence? Let's just wrap up this section sort of on that.
Yep.
Lots of people think it's coming. It's replacing jobs and humans, and the robots are coming. And so, what do you see today with that? How is AI an opportunity today for accounting firms, professional finance firms? How are they using it today? Is it replacing people, or is it just helping people?
Yeah, no, I would say it's definitely making us more efficient, and sometimes people kind of perceive that as replacing people, and certainly don't think that's the case. Our businesses are mostly built on our relationships, and so I think that my view is for sure leveraging AI is basically better equipping us in our relationships. So it's helping us have more meaningful and more focused conversations with our clients. And so let AI kind of do the heavy lifting within that data, those different systems, those different visibility views that we may have, and really give us a leapfrog effect where we can go, oh, hey, here's some things I can talk to Mr. Jones about that I wouldn't have necessarily had. So, no, I mean, I personally, within our lives, we deal with a lot of different service providers, and whenever I'm not, I don't always have to talk to a person, but when I want to, I certainly want to, and so I still want to have that as an option. Things that get automated sometimes can get lost too, like in tech, and we've all kind of had those long wait times, or in a company's ARU phone system where we've got a menu that never ends, right? So those examples are where it needs to kind of be, again, a balancing act of and an approach of what's right for our businesses. But certainly, I see AI as making us more efficient in how we're doing our jobs, and helping us be more focused in our conversations with our clients. And that focus and those outcomes of those conversations is going to lead to efficiency, cost savings within our business, certainly client experience, and then there's probably a few here that we haven't even touched on. But it definitely is a game changer, and allows us now to focus again on harvesting those relationships. Just like we want to harvest our data, we want to harvest our relationships, and add to our business, and look at different product suites and different opportunities to satisfy our clients' needs.
In the end, it's all about people, like you say, and being able to have better conversations and have better data to have them is really the key to that, and exciting to see how that's going to continue to evolve here over the years to come. On that note, I mean, technology is changing so quickly all the time. How do you keep up on it? Like,
Yeah.
you're in the space, so it's your job to keep up on it. But how do you actually keep up on all of this that's going on? What do you do on a daily basis or monthly basis to stay in touch with what's
Yeah, no,
happening?
that's a good question. And it's certainly, I mean, we're always learning. We're always, I find, I'm reading constantly, looking at different articles. There's different, industry associations. And, I really encourage everyone to kind of slice some time off in their week. We're all busy now, we're all on different virtual meetings online. And so meetings are happening longer in the days. Because we're not at the office, we're at home. And so, but I encourage everyone to kind of, particularly business owners, to, spend a couple hours a week, just go on the internet, researching, look at most of the associations that we're either certified by within our business or our partners, our vendors, the platforms that we use, they all have publications, just keep kind of reading and learning and evolving. And that's really what I do. And when a certain conversation goes into a deeper topic, then that's really where I'll roll up the sleeves and spend even more time and kind of, like that point in time, because you can be overwhelmed. There's a lot out there, but trade publications, industry guidelines. I mean, there's so much resources out there.
Are there any in particular, Stuart, that you really appreciate that you can comment on that would be a good resource for people?
Yeah, I mean, I find just like with anything, the bigger firms, like in some cases there are competitors, but in the financial services space, the big four have done a really good job in terms of investing resources, in terms of
education and
publications, and they all have CTOs, they all have data science areas, and so a lot of my research, and you're never going to go wrong by kind of going with some of those, but also falls into on the tech side, the papers that come out from Forrester or Gartner, those are real good sources. They often write white papers and they talk about the leading technology industry trends on a sector by sector basis. So those are also very informative.
Yeah, great.
I use both of those as common starting points.
Perfect. Yeah. Actually, I read an article this morning with, I think it was Deloitte and Touche on data transparency and some of the risks associated with that. So you're right. I mean, they're a great resource for that. And if we got accountants listening, well, that's going to be easy for you. You know how to track that down. So that's good. And anything else, Stuart, in terms of resources your company can provide? I mean, obviously, they can reach out to you, but do you have any other third-party resources or things that you do to help educate firms that may potentially be a client of yours down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a starting point, it's a conversation, and we're in a place now where the competitive side of things, within our industry, talking to people within our own sectors. I mean, it's one thing that I've learned, an invaluable lesson back in the day in the telecom sector. They all talk to each other. They all work together, and so learning about what's happening in your own sector. We all have our personal networks. Obviously, yes. I mean, sure, reaching out to a consultant, our Keyworks is here. We'd love to chat about, how we can help you with cybersecurity posture, data privacy, data strategy, road mapping on technology. But, hearing what your peers are doing, the people that maybe you worked with at another firm years ago, the people that you trust and respect, and having conversations with them, and then tying that back to kind of what your own business needs are, and then bringing in outside help where needed. That's kind of how I see it as the most effective way. We have different resources within our company. We have our own kind of accounting practice as well, and as a business, and so we have to meet certain compliance guidelines just like everyone else does. So, talking to business leaders that are dealing with the same challenges, and have the same opportunities. And the days of that competitive side of things, there's frenemies out there. We're all, within our sector, and not being afraid to go and have those conversations with people. And obviously you're not disclosing everything, who you're talking to and who you're working with, but talk to your frenemies and learn what they're doing and how they're doing it. I mean, I feel like that's real helpful ways to help us with our planning and how we go forward as an organization.
Yeah, for sure. And so if they want to reach out to you, you're on LinkedIn, Stuart. I'm sure they can connect with you there through your website. Is that sort of the easiest way to do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn, is a good one for sure. Definitely anyone who's looking at this podcast, we'll have kind of access to, our contacts, Tim, I'm sure. And, we're happy to sit down. It doesn't have to be a big time thing. We can sit and have a coffee and chat or do a Zoom call and just understand. And, I'm all about helping with the thought, the thought works that have to go into these changes. They're big changes. They're not always easy, but, having conversations and dialogue around how we can support, we're here to do that. We're always open to investing and love meeting new people and expanding my personal network, our company network as well. So it's about that collaboration, and those conversations I think are invaluable. So we're open to having them for sure.
Well, thank you, Stuart, for that. I always ask my guests if there's anything interesting they're reading or have read that they'd like to share with our group. I was involved in Strategic Coach for many years, and I always got a lot of value out of what people were reading. It's a great way to continue your own education on. And so is there anything that you've read lately or that you've read in the past that you think our audience would appreciate?
Yeah, off the top of my head, Tim, nothing specific. I mean, I love to read books. Lately, and kind of in line with our previous conversation, I'm reading a lot of magazine articles. There's a number of different sources out there, but I'm really focused on disruption right now. I think that any articles that are tied to the disruption within business, within sectors, we've all seen the Airbnb story, the Uber story. Was talking a little bit about that already. How things have changed. And apply that more specifically to our own sectors. But, anything on LinkedIn, I shared yesterday with Sophie, actually here at WealthCo, a disruption YouTube on someone who is a respected former colleague, and shared that. There's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of YouTube videos around disruption. I encourage everyone to go out and take on that topic and just update yourself, educate yourself, and learn more about what that really means within your sector. And I think that will go a long way to help out.
Well, maybe we'll pass along that YouTube clip here when we're done. But,
I can do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, Stuart, thank you so much for your time today. Always enjoy talking to you and the support you provide us, and you being willing to invest the time today to speak to our accounting community. So thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and I'd love to come back. And I think there's all kinds of other conversations we could have, and absolutely, Tim. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, and there absolutely is. I think we just touched the tip of the iceberg here today, so hopefully we can go a little deeper on a few of these areas in the future. And on that note, Stuart, thank you again, and that ends this edition of the Innovative Accountant Podcast. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed your time with us today. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Innovative Accountant Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and even learned something new. If you're interested in elevating your firm and transforming your client experience to create sustainable firm growth, get in touch with us by visiting integratedadvisory.ca to set up your free call with one of our integrated advisory experts. Visit integratedadvisory.ca today to set up your free call with an integrated advisory expert. Be sure to subscribe to the Innovative Accountant Podcast so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and be sure to tune in for the next episode of the Innovative Accountant Podcast. Production of the podcast is by At Heart Creative and can be found online at heartcreative.com.